Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. I am Midge Noble, your host, and I am also the author of Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story. So today we're going to take a journey into oneness. And this was also prompted by the formation class that I was in on Sunday. If you guys ever want to join online to our formation class and joining in on the conversations, I can absolutely give you that link to join us. You do not have to be a member of the Episcopal Church or any church, and you do not have to be a member of my church. But if you're interested in some of the discussions that we have, we would love to have you jump in and be a part of the discussions. So oneness came up because we're doing that book, as I told you last time, Love is Letting Go of Fear by Gerald Jampolsky. And it's been a really eye-opening, frustrating book for me to read. So I'm going to tell you a little story that's true, and then I'm going to talk more about oneness. So with everything else going on in my life, with my wife's surgery, and then the same week of my wife's surgery, our oldest dog Ella cut her pad quite severely on something in the backyard. We're still not sure exactly what, but sliced it really good. Required stitches, and it's been very difficult to heal that. She may be getting her stitches out tomorrow, but we'll see. So that's including a cone, and a foot boot to go outside and to try to keep it dry. Then our corgi Kenzie decided that she was going to develop a UTI and required frequent bathroom breaks and medication. So when I've talked to you before about how I'm very uncomfortable in a nurse situation and caring for someone who may be in pain and needing to do certain things, I have now magnified that responsibility to 3 different people in my home. So, I've been stressed and I've been off my game. And I had this experience for months now of this person walking around through our neighborhood with a very large, beautiful dog and a very small, nasty little dog that barks constantly and is not really kind. And the guy just lets this dog come into my yard and pee anywhere it wants and poops. And I have gone into the front of our property. Now, we have several lots together, so, he'll come in the front, right in front of our house, and then go down to the lot next to ours, which, I know is tempting for dogs because it's a lot, and anyway, but it doesn't matter to me what it is. It's my property. And I don't appreciate him allowing his dog to come in freely on a retractable lead and poop and pee in our yards. So I went out one time, and I started out because, I like to be passive and I don't like to be confrontational, but I certainly can. So I started out by just standing at the door as my dogs are barking crazy because there's a dog soiling in our yard, and I just stared at him and thinking, by not saying anything, but just staring at him, he would know that I disapproved, but apparently he doesn't have that kind of filter. And so then I went up and I actually said to him, "Hey, you may not know this, but our property starts at that little bush back there, and then it goes all the way down to here, and I'd appreciate it if you don't let your dog poop and pee in the yard." And he just laughed at me and he goes, "You can't control where dogs go." And I said, "Well, yes, you can." And so then he started, getting confrontational, which raised my confrontational vibe. And I, I just couldn't understand why he didn't just say, I'm sorry, and move on, but he didn't. And then he started picking on my social justice sign that says love is love and many other things of social justice. And he says, well, love, you need to get a new sign because you're not showing any love. And I said, well, that's not what that's about. And it took me several times of saying to him, that love is really about gay marriage, but he kept talking over me. It was one of those things where no matter what I said, he was talking over me anyway, which fired me up because, I really like to be respected if I was trying to be respectful, and I was in the beginning, and then I lost it completely. I can just tell you, I went off the rails and I was like a mad woman. And, and it's really bothered me how quickly I really lost my temper. And we got the last time we talked, and I've talked to him several times about it and expressed concern that he just has totally disregarded my request and that he's actually trespassing on my property. And so he comes back with me, I'm not trespassing, I'm picking up my dog's poop. And I think you should be glad that I'm picking up the poop. Other people probably just leave it behind. And I said, you have actually left it behind before because I've seen it. Now, of course, I'm saying this and he's still talking over top of me. And yet he thinks that he's justified in letting his dog come into my yard anytime he wants and do whatever they want. And if he picks up the poop, I need to be grateful. Well, yeah, I was very disappointed in myself that day because I was probably certifiably um, crazy at that point. So, if we're talking about oneness, the thing that happened in that altercation with him is that I was absolutely in a massive disagreement with him, that we were basically fighting in opposition of our 2 points, and there was no respect. It was only discord and just absolute anger. He called me anal. I countered that with saying, you sound like a misogynist because you won't stop talking and you're not respecting me as a woman and not respecting what I'm trying to say. And it just was, inappropriate on both of our parts. But I can only take care of what I do and change what I do. So I began to plan. And the next time that I went out, I took pictures of him in my yard and took pictures of his dogs pooping in my yard. And I had the intention that I would charge him with trespassing, that I would make that case that he's trespassing, and I've asked him not to. And I don't know. So it was a bad place. And for me, that was completely not in alignment with anything I talk about, with anything I try to do in any relationships that I have. That is unlike me in a thousand different ways. So when we talked about oneness on Sunday, it was really interesting how quickly I was feeling called out. And not because the people in the class were calling me out, but because I was trying so hard to not be wrong that I felt like anything they were offering, which was all gentle and even their own personal stories, it was me feeling that inner struggle of who I am and what I had devolved into. And so I knew that the Holy Spirit was working on Sunday because I was just clenched up and stuck in my oneness of me, just thinking only of me, my own ego, my own desires, my own needs. Now, there's nothing wrong with me feeling angry that he's coming in and dumping poop on my yard, even if he picks it up. If you have dogs and you know how they poop and you go to pick up stuff with those little baggies, you don't usually always get everything because sometimes they're not good, hard, solid stools. Sometimes they're a little messy. And his little dog, especially, does not have good, healthy looking poo. So, and it just bugs me that there was disrespect. And there was nothing wrong with me being angry about that. There's nothing wrong with me for feeling the way I felt and for wanting to be respected on my own property and to have my property respected. The problem is that instead of staying in my place of oneness, wanting to be oneness with everyone that's here on earth. Yes, I'm aware that that's a pipe dream for us humans, but I would like to achieve and continue to aspire to that. But that it took me to a really dark place. So if you define oneness, it's really about feeling unified and wholeness and harmony. In the Bible, it talks several times about oneness, and in the Bible, it's more of a spiritual union between believers and Jesus. It's a harmoniousness of community, like in the church. If we're oneness in the church, even though we all have different ideas and different values, we all come together as one body of Christ to believe certain doctrines or to believe certain affirmations, or that we are like-minded in that we all are following Jesus and doing the best we can on that road. It's a shared existence with someone. And Jesus even prayed that we be one, even as Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit are one, that we would also be one with Jesus. It's it's a purposeful love and a deep connection with God. But it doesn't stop there, because oneness really does also imply in our world today how our relationships can grow and be, how our lives can be. Ram Dass always said that we're walking each other home. And I thought about that yesterday after class, that if I were taking oneness as not just me, singleness me, but as I open my heart up to everyone else in the world, and we are all human beings, like what do we have in common? Our oneness is that we're all human. And it doesn't matter that we have different nationalities and different races and different, sexual identities. We are all humans. And as we walk through this world together, that humanness of us, although it varies between beliefs and, spirituality and all of those things that make us uniquely us, the oneness that we can achieve is to see each other as human. And the monologues that you hear from the comics and all of the discussions that you have about the regime that's in power right now, I mean, there is no oneness, because we're either divided politically, we're divided spiritually, we're divided as far as what we want for ourselves and our fears for what we're not going to get. There is so much division in this world today, and oneness is very hard to find, and it's also hard to do. But in our lives, that state of being completely united with somebody, and we think of this as marriage, when we come together as two humans with different backgrounds and different beliefs and maybe different sports teams that you pull for, which I don't understand, but that oneness is coming together when we think of being united in that love, and that we can be kind and compassionate and think of someone else's needs as well as our own, but also being able to be broad enough to make things harmonious with the person that we love and that we chose to marry. And even in our friendships, being able to be completely in agreement with someone, with your besties, when you guys have a common goal, and, it's going to be this, and we're all going to do this. Maybe we're all going to get a tattoo to prove that, we're in union with each other. Maybe we're all going to go out and, do something as a gift to somebody else, and we're going to all work together. I remember that it's been several years ago now, but one of the parishioners in the church was having a very difficult time after their husband passed. And so myself, along with several other people in our beloved community, got together and we went and did a work day at their house so that they would be able to, have their windows washed that were too high to reach, that they were able to get things cleared that needed to be cleared, because it was too hard to do it by yourself. And we all experience that, where when you're not doing your best and you need help, you can call on people who have the skill set that you need that you may not have, or you have something that you can offer someone else. My sister even talked about, there was someone at her church that her she couldn't do something because she's now living alone. And so my sister talked to the pastor about starting some sort of a group that could help out elder parishioners if they had a need to, change a light bulb or to mow their grass or to whatever it is that, church will take care of people in the church. And so they're going to start that. And people will call her to say they have a need. And then she will tell the pastor, and then the pastor will find an appropriate person to assist them. And it didn't have to be for someone that's necessarily old, because it could just be that you're living alone and you don't have anybody there to help you and you need help doing something that takes two people. So when we talk about Ram Dass's theory that we're all walking each other home, what that means is that we put our feet on the ground and we put our hearts in front of us, and we walk people until they die. Basically, we walk with people that we can help and assist until they're no longer here. And the opportunity to do that is really, really huge right now, that there are lots of people in need. There are people who are really, you know, having trouble putting gas in their car. There's people that are having trouble getting their lawns mowed. There are people who are having trouble, taking care of things around their home. And we can offer ourselves as a way to walk someone home. So oneness is not just about don't argue with people on your front lawn about something that in the big scheme of things is not going to get you in or out of heaven. It's just all about common decency. And he may never change. I can pretty much guarantee you he's never going to change. And he will continue to whenever he walks through here, because apparently he doesn't live here. He told me he doesn't live anywhere. But but he did confirm I don't live here. And I said, "Well, where do you live?" And he goes, "I don't live anywhere." So, okay, fine. I know this is a dead end unless he really has a change of heart, because no matter what I say, it's not going to make a difference to him. What I can do is make a difference within my own heart. And I can, because this is not a life or death situation. He's not doing anything that is going to kill me unless I continue to raise my blood pressure, which was definitely evident the other day. So it's on me to come from my own belief system, my own desires, to be the person that I desire to be. And I need to remember that we do have oneness in that we're both humans and we both love dogs. Now, that's as far as I've gotten so far. And I also believe that in my oneness with Jesus, that I do have the agape love somewhere in me that I can change how I respond to this situation, because it will continue to happen whenever whoever he visits in our neighborhood, whenever he comes through. It is clear that he's not going to change what he's doing. And I can be grateful that he does pick up the poop, and he's gotten, I think, a little bit better at doing that from what I can tell. So I'm not sure how that's going to evolve and give you a whole picture of that, but I am going to refrain from going out my door when his dogs are in the front of my yard. And I will check behind it and make sure that it's taken care of, because I don't want my dogs going up there, and if his dog is sick, and I don't want to, mix paws and poop and all that kind of stuff. So I will check, but I'm not going to be as vigilant as I've been, and I'm not going to be as confrontational as I have been. And I'm going to ignore him, basically, because that's what's healthy for me right now. And I think that's what can bring me closer to being one with him in his situation with having dogs and also being a human. And we're in this situation all over right now with, with the person in the White House, with the regime that is allowing him to get away with things, with all of those things. It is a big mountain to climb to find oneness in people that we are so completely different from mentally and spiritually. And it's not something that's just going to happen overnight. And it's not something that I feel qualified to even talk about it today because, I'm still in the beginning stages of moving out of confrontation with this person. So it's it's just a journey. As we walk each other home, sometimes somebody has to walk us home. And my formation class did that for me on Sunday and talked about, what am I willing to sacrifice? What kind of peace of mind and what kind of character do I want? And yes, it's wrong. And yes, he should do better. And yes, I should too do better in how I respond to him. And, it's a sad thing that if anybody saw us, and I'm sure some people did, they would not think either one of us was Christian because it was just out of control. And that, I think, wounds me more than anything, that as I'm trying to, remember that I'm gay with God, and yet, I'm human. And I totally embrace the fact that I can be human and learn from everything I go through. And this is one of those things. It was not my finest moment, and I know that. And yet, I also know that I can do better, and I will do better because I want to. I want to be in harmony with what I speak and how I walk on this earth. And we have glitches from time to time. So, in my desire to be oneness, I am going to change my behavior. And that is all I can do. That's all I have control of. If I made a big circle and in the middle I put all the things that I can control, and outside that circle is all the things I can't control, the outside of that circle is way packed. and, and the things I absolutely can control are quite limited, I can tell you that. And that's probably true for all of us. So as you walk someone home today, or this week, or during your lifetime, remember that it's reciprocal, that sometimes people are going to walk you home and they're going to journey with you in a harmonious, beautiful way. And then there are going to be people, and you may be one of those people, who find their spiritual bucket really drained. And we make choices that are not in our best interest or the interest of others. And somebody's going to walk us home. So I hope that we all stay receptive to when people need to give us feedback and assist us on our journey home, so that we can be as harmonious and loving and Christ-like as we possibly can. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you, everybody, for honoring me with your listening and sharing and subscribing to this podcast wherever you get yours. And if you want to see more information and links to connect with me, go to the Gay with God show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. You can find links to the memoir, Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story. There's a link to request a confidential and free session with me. So go to empoweredmidge.podbean.com, or you can check out my website at gaywithgod.com. Also check out our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly Zoom group entitled My Faith Journey. That's a great place to get support on just the daily walking each other home and how we deal with our faith and what's going on in our world. And we sometimes laugh, we sometimes cry, and sometimes we talk about just anything that's relevant. So that's Gay with God on Facebook, and make sure that you answer all the questions so that I can invite you inside. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, are not even sure if you are gay, God has always been within you. Even when you didn't know it, you have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.